Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the SanRenMu SRM 7046 LTX-LPR-T3 Triangle 05. That is a really snappy name there, SanRenMu. Well freaking done with that. But nonetheless, this knife does deserve a little bit of time in the spotlight, and so here it goes. And first off, though, I want to thank my buddy Hovan for sending this guy along. He donated this to the channel a long time ago. I just finally have gotten around to it, so thank you, Hovan, for that. Next thing, size comparison. This is a weird little knife, size-wise. First off, here it is against the Spyderco Delica. So you can see in terms of blade length, it's shorter than the Delica. It comes in at approximately, looks to be about 2.6, 2.7 inches, someplace in that variety. It's not a big knife, 100 freaking percent, which is good in some senses. Here it is against another smaller green knife, the Spyderco Dragonfly, and of course the steel wheel cut jack, 3-inch model, and the Ontario Rat #1 with your D2 steel. So again, this is not a very large knife. It's also a relatively thin knife, compared to some options. It's a little bit thicker than your Delica here, but not by a huge margin. It's an interesting piece, absolutely 100 freaking percent. So, yeah, that's good. Next thing, I want to talk about the brand here. SanRenMu, SRM, whatever the heck you want to call them. They are a well-known OEM, original equipment manufacturer. They make knives for a lot of prominent makers. They are one of the bigger Chinese factories. They make knives for Real Steel, Ruwaiki, CRKT, I've heard rumors, has some stuff made through SanRenMu, etc. So, even if you've never heard of the company, you've almost certainly handled one of their knives if you're in the knife game. But this is an own branded piece. This is built by SanRenMu directly as a company. So that's interesting. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of your SanRenMu SRM 7046 here. So on the good side, first off, the blade finish is nice. You can see it actually does have a hint of a mirror polish to it, which is pretty impressive, I have to say. Very seldom do you see this kind of finishing on a knife this inexpensive, which is good. And you see a similar polish actually on the brass portions where they come through. This is an impressively finished little knife. Next thing, this has a lot of texturing scattered about here. You get texturing over here, you get texturing here, you get texturing back here. You get the texturing of the handle being cut open. This actually provides a little bit of texturation as well. Can't argue with that, so that's good. Next thing, you actually have two carry options, which again is a little unusual in a knife in this kind of price range. You can carry this guy tip up, or you can flip the clip around and go tip down. That gives you two choices. There you go. Can't argue with that. Next thing, it does actually include this little wrench section here. It's different, it's interesting, and presumably if you happen to cross a nut with those proper dimensions, you could use this to get out of a little bit of a jam. And in fact, you can even use it with the blade closed, because the blade just provides a bottom end to that. But yeah, so that is a thing that it does. The color scheme on this is kind of unique. I gotta say, I've not seen, usually budget knives are gray messes, and maybe a little bit of blue or something, but this is a very bold color scheme that you don't see very often. So, you know what? I appreciate that they went bold, they went big, even on something that's aimed at a low price. It does have a glass breaker tip, and you can actually see here, I hope, that there are two metals here. That this is kind of a bimetallic affair, which makes me hope that it is actually a real glass breaker, that this middle metal there is actually very hard, and thus it will actually break glass. Man can dream, and so although I don't have any glass to check breaking with, it seems like it's likely to be a real glass breaker. Next thing, this is super smooth. This does have phosphor bronze washes, although laid onto washes of other materials, but it is very, 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 very smooth. With the polish on this blade as well as the washes, this is honestly a really, really impressively smooth little knife, and it is a beautiful showcase for the fact that with phosphor bronze washes, even in a cheap knife, you can get incredible action. So that's good. And then finally, on the good side, it's 15 bucks, and I can't argue with that whatsoever. This is an impressive little piece. For 15 bucks, yeah, no complaints there on the price. So those are the good things. It's 15 bucks. It is super smooth in terms of the overall action here. It has a glass breaker tip, which looks like it might actually be a real glass breaker tip. It's a unique color scheme, tip up or tip down, nice use of texture, and a nice blade finish, 100%. On the great side to me is the blade shape. This is a super unique blade shape. In fact, what the closest thing that I can think of for this guy is like a razor blade with a sharpened front tip there. What this means is that this knife actually gives you, in addition to normal cutting sorts of tasks, it also gives you the ability to scrape very nicely. One thing to note, though, is that unlike a conventional razor, this is a chisel grind on actually both edges. Although you have a bigger grind on this side, but it is chisel ground, which means that you're going to be even better at doing things like scraping up stickers or something like that, which is something I often find myself doing, but it is absolutely in that domain. Oh, come off it. It is absolutely in that domain a useful little thing. We'll talk about that little detail in a moment here. But look, I love the blade shape. I think it's really neat. It's off the beaten path. It's unusual, and that's excellent to me. So that is, to me, what is great. On the bad side, a couple of little issues. That's short for nitpick issues, and a couple of bigger ones. First off, they just barely missed the sharpening choil. You can see there's just a little tiny bit of a kind of pop out there. Just a little bit more, guys. You would have nailed it. Not a big deal, though. The wrench thing is a gimmick. Let's just be real here. These things tend to be a little bit of a pain in the neck to use anyways, because you kind of have to continually apply force to wedge the nut into the proper position while still turning the thing. You can do it, but on a knife this slippery, we'll come back to that. It's not super stellar. But it's a harmless gimmick. Doesn't hurt anybody, so why not, right? The carry on this guy, particularly tip up, is particularly shallow. You can see here it's not giving you a whole bunch to grab on. I'm sorry, it's giving you a bunch to grab onto here. Sorry about that. It is unfortunately a slippery bit to grab onto, so that's a little unfortunate, but that shallowness of the carry is not something I'm particularly in love with, especially when you've got a glass breaker, which will be poking at you all day long. So that's on the bad side. Next thing, this has a chisel grind on a V bevel. They have done a V grind on the knife on the whole. It's not like the entire back of the knife is flat, making it a true chisel grind. Instead, they've taken a V bevel and then they've put a chisel ground edge on it. This is, like I said, what differentiates it from a true razor knife, where it is a V grind on both sides, but it's not great for angled systems. You can pull it off on a KME or an Edge Pro or something like that. And in fact, after I finish this video, this is going to Knife Crazy, another YouTuber does a lot of KME videos, for him to make a demo on how to do that. But that is a little bit of a pain in the neck. For a lot of people's sharpening setup, this is not going to be ideal. Next thing, it does leave a pretty big hole in the handle when you remove the clip. This is good at some level because it means that the clip sits relatively flush, although there are definitely the screws in there. But it is absolutely a hole in the handle that's just going to attract gunk and kind of get dinged up as the anodization wears away. Not a big deal, but it's a deal. The thumb plate on this guy is absolutely in the slicing path on this little guy. What you can see here is that as you're cutting into this will be grabbing into whatever you're cutting, especially as you're cutting with the area closest to the blade. That's never something I like to see, and this is the reason why generally thumb disc or thumb plate opening mechanisms I'm not in love with. But this one is particularly, I mean, given that it's a short blade, a little annoying. Then finally, I gotta say, the thumb plate sucks. I mean, you've seen me using this and trying, and the thing is, this is a very slick surface here. They've added a little bit of jimping, but overall, this is not a super textured sort of affair. And because there's very little, ridge at the front of it there, I found that this is very difficult, although I can pull it off, to really reliably open. And I find myself slipping off of this plate on a regular basis. Now, of course, it's going to work fine because, hey. But there you go. There you go. I'm not a big fan of this thumb plate here. I like the approach of trying to make it thinner up at the front there, but it has an unfortunate consequence in terms of actually manipulating the knife. And so, to me, those are the bad things, is that the thumb plate sucks and is in the middle of the slicing path. It leaves a big hole when the clip is removed. You have a chisel grind on a V-bevel, nice and shallow carry. The wrench thing is kind of a gimmick, and they have definitely missed the sharpening choil. On the ugly front, there were three big issues here. First off, there is not currently, as of January 2018, a good source to buy these from. The only sources that I have found these knives available from are direct distribution sites that also sell counterfeit and clone goods, and usually via direct shipment from China. I know in the comments a lot of people will be, oh, Nick, those sites are fine. I order from all the... Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to send my people there because, you know what? A, I don't want to support the counterfeit world, and B, there's a lot of sketch going on. So, unfortunately, I'm not able to find good distributors for these guys, and that makes it a little bit hard to recommend. It's like, there's a great knife, but you got to buy it from that toothless guy in the woods who shoots at passing cars with a paintball rifle and breaks into pharmacies. I mean, Yeah, you can get it, but do you wanna? So that's ugly. Next thing, the handles are really slippery on this guy. Especially the areas where there is no texturing, where there is no nothing. For some reason, whatever anodization they're doing here, it flies out of my freaking hands. When you try and pull this out of your pocket, it's very easy to slip right off. It's easy to slip off the thumbs. I mean, all of the texturing helps to actually, once you've got it locked into hand, you know, having this here, this here, this here, absolutely helps, but manipulating the knife is slippery as heck. Then finally on the bad side, on the ugly side, that is, this blade is stainless steel. They're not even willing to give me a grade of the stainless steel here, and usually that's not a good thing. In fact, it is never the case that a mystery steel is secretly M390 or something like that. Mystery steel generally means bad steel. And, you know, although it's okay, I guess, in terms of use, I'm not super impressed with it, just working with it. So, this is using a stainless steel blade, which means it's using some awful steel, whatever was left over at the foundry. The handles are very, very slippery, and I just can't find a source that's worth a damn to buy these here in the States. But, hey, whatever. Anyways, that's the ugly. Let's talk about your final conclusion, which is that this is actually a pretty nice little piece, for the price at least. It is very, very smooth for the price. That is maybe the most interesting thing about this knife, is just how freaking smooth this is. I mean, holy crap, is this smooth. And it also has some nice features. I mean, and a nice finish, but most of all, I appreciate that this knife is both inexpensive and really weird. Usually you don't get both. Usually cheap knives tend to be very vanilla. There's not much going on. It's just like a knockoff version of a more expensive knife. Or just like, oh, hey, look, we made a knife, it folds. Wow, go figure. But then on the higher end, you end up getting more unique designs, more interesting and different things. But thing is, this knife here is both odd and inexpensive. And I have to give it credit for that. This is a knife that's not like anything else that's being sold anywhere on the price range. I mean, the nearest resemblance would be like the Razel-style blades from John Graham, either from CRKT or if you can get one from Graham himself. But as a result, this becomes worth considering even when you can spend more than $50. The problem is, though, it's got some pretty serious problems. It is crazy slippery. Oh, my God. The steel is a mystery, and there is just no legitimate distribution chain for this as of January 2018. So that's just not great. And as a result, even though this is a knife that is pretty damn neat, actually, I mean, there's a lot going for it, and it is new and it's interesting, it's really not a knife that I can go out of my way to recommend. And you know, as much as I love that they're doing something weird here, unfortunately, at the end of the day, I think the 7046 is probably not 704U. Look, it's a number. I can't do better with the puns. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves a wonderful day, and it's time for me to SanRenMu along. Bye now.